I had the passion, the energy, and I'm a newbie, and I don't have the wherewithal or the expertise, so I wanted someone to kind of guide me, help me through all the pitfalls. I know I was going to stumble along the way, but if someone can help shorten it, then I can quit sooner. So fast forward with that, he agreed to be my mentor, Peter Harris, and I was able to quit my full-time engineering job in just 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's my journey, and I'm just on a mission of now giving back. And I still remember the first time I worked with Peter, he said, Pam,
welcome to the episode number 7 of Real Estate Success Podcast, where we interview real estate practitioners and doers in sales and investment space. I'm your host, Tommy Kim. My co-host, Cole Harvey. What's up?
What's going on, Tommy?
You want to share with us who we have? A special guest.
We have a tremendous episode today. Today, we're going to be talking to Pam Scamardo. Pam has this crazy story of going from an engineering career into full-time investing in multifamily real estate. And she's done it step by step along the way in a way that's digestible for everyone. Even if you're new to investing, it's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, if you are looking to get into multifamily investing in apartment space and want to learn syndication, this is a must. Check out. Be sure to click on like, subscribe, and follow us on our future episodes, and look forward to seeing you in the future. Level up every day. Enjoy. Welcome to the Real Estate Success Podcast. Today, we have another fantastic episode. It's about investing in multifamily. My name is Tommy Kim, your host. My co-host, Cole Harvey. What's up?
What's going on, Tommy? How you doing?
Yeah, we have a special guest. You want to give us a breakdown of who we have today?
I do, yeah. We're very excited today to have Pam Scamardo with us on the podcast. Pam has spent the past decade committed to acquiring, managing, and repositioning apartment complexes. She specializes in maximizing passive income for her partners while preserving investor capital through successful apartment syndication. She's the author of C.R.E.A.T.E Wealth, How to Ditch Your 9-to-5 Job with Multifamily Investing, and she serves as the director for the Center of Real Estate at Cal State University, Fullerton. Pam currently serves as the founder and managing partner of TPK Properties LLC, which is a privately held multifamily investment company that acquires, manages, and renovates medium to large-size apartment buildings all along the West Coast. Pam also recently founded the C.R.E.A.T.E Wealth Network with the charter mission of providing high-quality education in commercial real estate investing with an emphasis on uplifting women leaders. And prior to joining the CRE industry, Pam worked as an aeronautical and mechanical engineer at Lockheed Martin, Boeing, and UTC Aerospace. Pam is also an enrolled agent and loves to educate clients on the benefits of passive income and tax depreciation advantages through investing in real estate. So awesome. That's a lot, Pam. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. This is fun to be in person versus on Zoom. Woohoo! So, yeah.
Right, absolutely.
And you're the first guest that we actually have in person.
Yes.
Yay!
I know. Yeah.
What an honor. So happy to be here, guys. Ready to rock and roll with whatever questions you want to throw my way.
Excellent.
Yeah,
well,
thanks for being here.
Why don't we start at the beginning?
Yeah, so a lot of, the information, investing in multifamily, you're someone who's doing it, you're someone who's done it. And so maybe give us a journey of how it was like. How did you get started in the first place on this journey?
Okay. Well, it depends. If you have all day or do you have 5 minutes? I'm kidding. I'll give a good abstract.
Snippet, yeah. Uh-huh.
So as Cole mentioned, I'm a former aerospace and mechanical engineer. And I really enjoyed that technical aspect for the first decade of my life. But then I saw the writing on the wall when my dad got ill around age 60, I want to say, and he was always saving up money to retire and said he wanted to travel the world. And so to me, I was like, oh, your health is not catching up. So what am I doing?
Right.
Working behind in a cubicle with like 5 monitors. I mean, as much as I enjoyed managing teams globally, like I was managing teams in India, China, Singapore, France, you name it. It was really fun traveling. But then I thought, why don't I travel on my own dime, my own way? So that was kind of when the light bulb went off. And I thought there's got to be a better way to retire earlier. And this was before those acronyms came out, like the FIRE movement and all that.
Right.
I just, wanted to find my own way and took an unconventional approach to real estate investing. And so what I would do on the weekends back then, when I didn't have kids or family yet, I would spend a lot of time at Borders bookstores and reading books. Aside from reading my fun, celebrity gossip magazines, I would go into the investment section. And all I would find were things about stocks, mutual funds, maybe, what are they called now? Insurance, life insurance, term insurance, and all that stuff.
Right.
Nothing that really caught my eye. I must profess, I'm not a fan of stocks because that's paper money. I love tangible stuff. I'm a hands-on kind of person as an engineer. And so one day found my mentor's book called Commercial Real Estate Investing for Dummies. And I was like, hey, I'm a dummy. What is this all about? It's not residential real estate. What is commercial real estate investing? So bought that book, read it cover to cover, and I was hooked after that because the book talks about all the different assets. What spoke to me the most was about apartment complexes, multifamily. And then the author, come to find out, one of the authors, he was a former science nerd like me as well.
Sure.
So I felt like I was talking to him in a coffee shop, so to speak, like when I was reading the book. So I decided, you know what do I have to lose? So guys, back then, this was the age of only Facebook and MySpace, just to give you guys perspective, things weren't readily available on Google, if you will. Yeah. So
Sure.
Old school style of stuff where I sent him a letter. I said, hey, just throwing caution in the wind here. Would love to meet up with you. Then I tried calling his office, basically stalking him, to be honest. Sorry, Peter. But it all worked out. Eventually, we got in touch, and I asked him to be my mentor because I thought I had the passion, the energy, and I'm a newbie, and I don't have the wherewithal or the expertise, so I wanted someone to kind of guide me, help me through all the pitfalls. I know I was going to stumble along the way, but if someone can help shorten it, then I can quit sooner. So fast forward with that, he agreed to be my mentor, Peter Harris, and I was able to quit my full-time engineering job in just 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's my journey, and I'm just on a mission of now giving back. And I still remember the first time I worked with Peter, he said, Pam, one day you're going to want to give back. And when that happens, you find your own way to do it. And I thought he was crazy. Literally at the time, I was like, Peter, I don't even have enough money to buy a property, let alone to survive. As an engineer with a good salary, I was taking care of my parents as well. I have immigrant parents. So I was like, you're crazy. I can't even close on my first deal, but I get it now. That's what a good mentor is. They see the light at the end of the tunnel for you, or they encourage you positively, right? They push you beyond that. So that's my story. Fast forward 10 years, started my business, quit my W-2 job, and then wrote a book this year. I don't know what's next, guys. Living off of passive income is worth it, and I'm on the other side of the grass, and it is greener. So I'm just extending a hand now to other people who want to come along.
Well, I think you touched on two things that are very common in this. And number one is people want to get into investing, first of all, to be in control of their finances and of their destiny. But also, I think you mentioned that real estate specifically appealed to you because it's a tangible asset, kind of the same way like bookstores probably appeal to you. And I notice that commonality amongst people is that they all, but the other thing everyone seems to have in common is they don't know what the first step is.
Yes.
And that's always the primary barrier is always the first step for everybody when it gets into investing, I think. Yeah,
that's very true. And you also touched on that whole tangibleness as well. At least right now, guys, I know I don't have a crystal ball, but having assets, real estate assets, it's a good way to hedge against inflation right now. So just throwing it out there for all you guys, whatever sort of property you have, don't get rid of it yet. Or
no.
If you want to, I guess you can talk to Tommy and Cole here if you want to get rid of it. But I highly recommend you guys keep it. But I think that's kind of what makes it fun for me. I was able to apply the engineering systematic approach of how I did my project management and engineering stuff to real estate, which is so crazy to be able to find that commonality. I know it's not rocket science, but it's so fun to just touch people's lives. And I think that was the silver lining all along. It's that this is a relationship business. It's a team sport. Sure, you want to go alone for a bit or be a lone wolf, but at the end of the day, you have to play nice with others. So that's been kind of fun.
Was there anything specific about multifamily that resonated with you? You mentioned that kind of spoke to you when you first were researching. What was that about multifamily?
Yeah, I think it was more like it touched my soul because I, coming from immigrant parents, we lived in apartments.
Right.
So we kind of know how it was like in, South Central LA when my parents were scraping by, working odd and end jobs, living in a slumlords community, right? I wouldn't even call it a community, but I remember those moments, even as young as 5 years old. So I think that's probably, it touched me the most of how can I create a community, even if it's a smaller footprint, by my hands with kindness, compassion, but still being successful in business.
Sure.
So that's been kind of like my business MO all along. Like I'd rather spend time over quality than quantity.
Yes,
Yeah, it's more fulfilling that way.
absolutely. Absolutely.
So you had that was your big why then. Can you like every time what I've seen successful entrepreneurs go through is they really have a big why as to why they want to invest or why they want to have financial freedom and then why they want to give back to the community. Can you touch upon how you were able to maybe develop your why to be able to, identify that? Or
Yeah, and you bring up a good thing about the whys. There's actually 3 components to my why. So I touched on it, which is like giving back to the community and creating a wonderful environment. The other part was just seeing my dad's health, right? And that big why was, oh my gosh, we are on borrowed time. How many years do I have left on this earth? Who knows? I may, something might happen to me and I won't be around, or maybe, my family, I might lose them, knock on wood, but it's a reality that we have to face with. We're not invincible. So that was something as well, where every second here we're getting older. So that was my other big why. And then when I had kids, that also added to the fact of I wanted to show them that mommy can be successful as well, be strong, and kind of show them that you can take the unconventional way of working and being fulfilled in life, finding your own path, pivoting if you need to. I know a lot of us did the past, 2-3 years here, but I think that's part of real life, right? It's never perfect. That's what I want to show my kids, and also creating that generational wealth, which is key.
Yes.
For them to pass on. And if they don't want to do anything with it, we already have it written in our estate planning and our will that it just gets donated to our top 3 charities.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, if they don't want to, take on the empire, so to speak, it's totally fine, right? Just give back. I mean, because what am I going to do with all the money and the properties when I'm in the ground or cremated, whoever?
Not much, right?
Yeah, not
sure.
much. So those are the big whys that kind of came about, Tommy, and it actually morphed over time and transformed as I grew as a person and grew, with a family as well.
Yeah.
And then now, this is fairly new, but as I'm going through a divorce and separation, it's like new beginnings again. And it's like, what am I going to do that's different now? So yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah. You had touched upon seeking a mentor, in this case, the Commercial Investment for Dummies, Peter Harris. I think one of the key things for, speeding up your success or learning is seeking mentorship. Can you maybe share how you were able to seek that type of mentorship, when you started out, and some of the things? I know it's always tough because each side, the student is looking for something, mentor is like, oh, I don't have time to, mentor someone. So maybe tell us a little bit more about how you were able to do that.
Yeah, that was such a very overwhelming process in the beginning. So thanks for helping me kind of go back in time for a moment here. Guys, I think I've done it all. So if you're wondering whether to explore a program or see if some guru has it, I kind of did the same thing. And it wasn't until I settled down on Peter and I was just like, oh my gosh, he's the one. But what helped me figure that out was attending as many networking opportunities as possible. Back then, it was by word of mouth a lot because, like I said, back then things weren't readily available. But nowadays, you guys have I don't know, you can Google it. You can Google a local real estate investing club or, speak with you guys. And you guys probably have access to local professional organizations that you can refer people to, right? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what I did. I was on a search phase, exploring, meeting different kinds of people. And I think the answer, because this is a common question that I always have a hard time answering, but the answer is not as straightforward as here's a blueprint. It's more of gut feel is what I realize. You have to be able to connect. They have to be the right fit for you. Like the saying is there's a lid for every jar. There we go. I almost butchered that. I probably did. Everyone has their own fit, right? Go find your cup of tea. And I think that's what's important. Some people think that you have to spend an X amount of money to be part of a program. Well, that's fine if it works for you. Do the whole rigmarole. But some people are one-on-one. For me, that's what I realized. I wanted that one-on-one. I wanted to be able to ask a lot of questions when I wanted to, because as an engineer, I tend to overanalyze. That's my biggest weakness, because we want that perfectionism.
Sure.
But then you learn that that's not life. And then another thing that really just where we connected with me and Peter was just that I just felt he was like a friend and a colleague because he understood where my brain was coming from of how I analyzed deals or how I looked at the property from like a scientific background. And then, and it's been full circle because he wrote the foreword to my book. So it's like my heart's about to burst every time I talk about it. I'm just like, thank you, Peter. I know he's so busy. He loves coaching, and bless everyone's heart who does that, because I know I can't do that.
Right.
Like I'll mentor people here and there and I keep it small, under 5 people. But it is, as a mentor, you put in over 100% for the students and the mentees. And it's heartbreaking when sometimes they don't put in the same amount. So I have mad respect for all the coaches out there. Find the program that works. Some people are like, hey, I can sit in an auditorium of like 100 people, still learn, and don't need to have that one-on-one basis. But for me, it was. So I was kind of like on the hunt, attending every single, club. And since I was in Southern California and Peter didn't live there, that was a little harder too. So at first I was concerned about that because I'm a break bread together at the same table kind of person. I need to be able to see you with the nonverbals. But we did get to meet, and then we used Skype back then, so that worked out. I mean, Skype dropped the ball with the pandemic, but that's how we stayed in touch of seeing each other's faces even before FaceTime came about. So, yeah.
Well, and I think the fact that you took the action to reach out to begin with, because the business world is so full of stories of people that reached out to Phil Knight, or these they had the courage to actually send a letter to these people, and they hear back, and then they build these relationships. I think a lot of people are just afraid to take action to begin with, like as far as even reaching out to an author they admire or someone who they'd like to learn from more directly. And yet we know so many examples, I mean, personally, and then just out in the media, of people that have connected with their mentors that way. So I think the fact that you took the effort says a lot as well, and is a good lesson for people in general.
Oh, thank you. And I think the message there too is that don't just give up after the first try. I'll be honest.
Of course not.
There's multiple times. That's why I used the word stalk loosely, because I was like, I tried this angle. He's not answering. Let me try another angle.
Yeah, but it's true. You have to be persistent, and that's the case no matter what. I mean, that's just how networking works.
Right. So I was learning the hard way of like having tenacity, being persistent, not giving up when you have your eyes on the prize. Because at the end of the day, it's up to you, right, to create your own journey and your own wealth. Even if you have a mentor or a coach, they can only show you so much, but you have to show up. Do your own part as well. And I think a lot of people misunderstand that and think like, okay, someone's going to teach me everything. I'm going to know everything. And then now I can almost like do it like as if it was overnight. But they forget that those mentors took time to even get to that level as well. There's no such thing as a free handout.
No,
in my opinion.
No, there's no way up but through.
I mean, you could try to learn from all the books, but I guess it's a matter of how much time you want to spend on that. There was a time I did that too, guys. Like I was like, I'm going to read every single book as much as possible. But at some point it's like, well, I need the hands-on training.
Yeah. So like, I'm curious, you have the engineer background, the multifamily, did it like right away? I know it has to do with a lot of numbers, the income, the expense, so on and so forth. Did it like start? When did you get like a good grasp of it, you think? Like when did it start coming to you?
Ooh, that's a good question. Well, I liked it immediately after reading that book. But I think when I started working with Peter, I want to say about 8 to 9 months, where I was just like, oh my gosh, this is it. Like compared to all the other assets, because it's very non-emotional. If the numbers work, they work.
Right.
If they don't, no big deal. Shake hands, move on. It's not like how it is, like buying your first home, where you might cry if you don't get that first home in a sense. But I have to admit, I have cried, with other deals, but that's just more of me getting stressed out or just, really putting my heart and soul into it. But in general, I love that it's the analysis of the numbers. So I still use like my very basic fundamental Excel sheet to do my analysis, which, I'm thankful you guys are bringing me in a couple days here for your team. That's going to be a freebie to all you guys. Go jazz it up on your own. But at the end of the day, if you can't write your own deal on a piece of napkin or like in the most basic sense and don't understand it, what have you got, right? So I've always kind of followed that philosophy. So I keep things as simple as possible. And I think that's what stood out for me, was just like, okay, people want a roof over their heads. What's the last thing they'll give up during a recession? roof over their heads.
Yeah.
So that kind of came in my mind as well. And then analyzing the numbers is fairly, to me, is fairly straightforward. And it could be overwhelming for some, but that's my strength as a numbers person. So you just gotta have to build your team slowly. You need to know yourself the most of what are you an expert at, and then go find those people who will be like a strong asset to your team.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how long were we from Borders Books in checking out that section to your first actual deal?
8 to 9 months, actually.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, I fell out of escrow twice. So you know how everyone always talks about success stories? I'm
yeah.
trying to focus on like the reality of it too, so that people can understand that this is attainable and it's real life. Because I know that everyone just wants to hear about success stories. Even I did in the beginning, but I also want to share that it was tough. The hardest part, guys, is your mindset. Shifting that mindset from, hey, I don't want to be a W-2 salaried person forever. I want to be an entrepreneur. What does that entail, first of all? And then on top of that, trying to become an investor. What does that entail? And then trying to throw in deals, negotiate. Oh my gosh, it was like I was put into like a fire, which I'm glad I came out unscathed. But it was fun. So I fell out of 2 escrows before I landed my first deal, which was a 6-unit in San Diego. Oh, wow. And I always talk about that one because it's still there. And my team tried to get me to sell it last year. I was the worst seller on earth, so I still have it. So I remember my broker was like, okay, Pam, we're going to have a crucial conversation. What is going on with this property? And I was like, well, it's my first baby, so a little attached to it. And he's like, okay, how about this? We refi cash out instead. I was like, yes, I still have the property. We refi cashed out. So that was okay. But just, you know, it's one of those things that reminds me of when the going gets tough. It lets me know that I started from somewhere and that, yes, it's always going to be hard, but you can kick fear in the butt and keep moving forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's huge. Yeah. So then take us a little bit forward. How did that particular asset, like the 6-unit, how did it like appeal to you? And then take us through like what kind of, within 2 years, how are you able to step away? That was still when you were working, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I was working full time. Yeah, so it was quite tough. So I lived and I breathed multifamily investing. So that was my goal at that time, being single. I mean, I dated and stuff, but I didn't have a family, right? So I put it out there to my friends and family that I was going to be a hermit for a while, or just not be out and about as much, and please don't get insulted kind of thing. Not that I was popular and going out so much, but just, you know, letting them know that I was trying to start a side hustle that will eventually be my main hustle. So I would wake up like 3 hours before having to get ready to go to work so I can catch the East Coast time, practice calling brokers, practice looking at deals and seeing what's out there, and then went to work. Then during my lunch break, I'd be doing more of the multifamily investing stuff, whether it was time spent reading a book to educate myself or calling people, building my team, you name it. Anything that dealt with multifamily investing was dedicated during my lunch hour. Sometimes I was so tired, I'd take a quick power nap in my car.
Wow,
I remember those days.
Yeah,
I'd take a quick power nap, and then because your brain, you know, it's like on fire, learning so much. But then I'd wake up and then I'm like, okay, what can I do that's dealing with multifamily before I go back and do analysis on airplanes? And then when I came back home in the evenings after working out or making dinner, the last few hours before bedtime was like, okay, now I can catch up on the West Coast people. What can I do? Is it an email I need to send out? Is it a text? Is it a call? Just one small step. Guys, that's really what I did because I'm ultra lazy sometimes. So the way I motivate myself is just if I can do one task that would get me closer to my goals, what can I do in that spare, whatever, hour, 2 hours? And if I achieved it in less than those 2 hours, high five myself, and I was good. I okay, I gave myself back those 2 hours or an hour and 45 minutes. But what I found with the reverse psychology is that once I finished that task, I was like, oh, what's next? That was cool. So I ended up utilizing the whole time anyways. Talk about just like the whole mind games we play. So back to your original question, with all of that, the journey of 2 years, it took 3 properties with 6 partners. To sum it up.
Oh, wow.
But that first 6-unit was the hardest because it was the first deal. I had no track record, right? And then on top of that, let's be honest, it's still a male-dominated industry, right? Mm-hmm. I'm thankful for you guys as being like our male allies, but you guys know how tough it could get for us.
Absolutely.
I got a lot of no's from lenders where, bless their hearts, they would make comments of like, what are you doing out here? Shouldn't you be at home cooking? It's like, yeah, I'll cook after I have a meeting with you.
Love those. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know how to handle that. Or if I shared like, hey, I'm actually, an aerospace mechanical engineer, probably worked on some of the planes that your butt has sat on. Really? Are you sure about that? Things like that. And so I probably had 99 no's until one yes.
Wow.
One guy who took a leap of faith with me, John Lloyd, I'll never forget. And I know lenders don't always take time to come meet you in person or go see the property, but I guess the stars aligned. He's like, Pam, let me just see this property. And I walked him through everything. I said, look, there's one gutted unit. Just because I have not done it before doesn't mean I won't know how to do it. I showed him all the 3 bids, gave him the whole strategy, the operational plans, and I showed him everything, all the numbers. And I said, by year 2, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to cash you out even sooner than that. So don't you worry. And then we shook hands. Like he said, you know what? I'm going to take a leap of faith with you. You seem to know what you're doing. You may stumble along the way, but it sounds like you've done plan A, B, and C, and D, and E. And I was like, yes. Like, we're going to make it happen, even if you don't work with me, is what I said. Because at that point, I was a little jaded. I was like, even if you don't work with me, I'm about to turn to a hard lender, and just work with a hard lender and deal with, the bigger loss of the higher interest rate and be done with that. So that was my journey with that. It was really tough getting a yes. So for those who are wondering how to get started, it's never easy, but don't give up. Like it just doesn't happen overnight unless you have like a wealthy uncle, you're a trust fund kid, then good for you. Maybe share some wealth with your other friends or something.
Yeah.
No, and that's such a key thing, right? I mean, building that team is I think the hardest for everybody, because if you don't know where to start, and then in your case, you were new to the industry, and then also it's an old school industry. It's got to grow, so those are all interesting
exactly.
challenges.
Or just the comments. I mean, and it was not too long ago too, to be honest, guys, like maybe a month or 2 ago, I was at a decision-making table, obviously being the only female, my assistant, another female, but bless his heart, he thought that I was there to serve coffee. I was just like, he's like, oh, we're waiting for our, waiting for our buyer. Can you go get this, and this? I said, absolutely. But you know what? Since I'm new to your office, why don't you get me my coffee? My assistant will have this because I'm here with the money today. So that kind of, but you learn to have a thicker face. And you don't have to be an ass about it either. You just learn to be nice. And I was like, giving him a compassion of like, maybe he hasn't been surrounded. He hasn't seen a female at the decision-making table, and that's okay.
That's a lot of grace for him, I think.
Yeah, it took years, though. To be honest, in the beginning, I used to be so angry, kind of like, oh, grr, why? Then I'm like, wait, being angry is like me drinking the poison. They don't feel it, so why? So try to have compassion for that. Did you find
that you encountered more of that when you got into real estate investing versus your previous career?
Oh my gosh.
Because that's a whole separate podcast, I think, I'm sure.
That's a really good question. The sad part is that it's the same.
Really?
I really thought that it would be different. It's still the same. Some of the things, the having to prove myself more than the other person next to me, even though I might have more years or maybe more properties, I just roll with it. And I've learned to just kind of let it just fall off, because at the end of the day, we're not the right fit. That's kind of what I've come to. Probably because I'm more comfortable with where I'm at now. In the beginning, you're desperate. You're just you're trying to prove yourself. You don't know if you're going to succeed or if you're going to crawl back to engineering with a tail, between your legs of like, hey guys, I'm back. So it was a lot of pressure then. Then I realized it's all good. The universe helps people with kind hearts, like if you're just trying to take care of your people, trying to do the right thing. As big as real estate sounds, like the industry sounds, the movers and shakers, it's a small group, right? You kind of run the similar circles, and so word goes around really fast. So if you take care of your integrity, your ethics, and your reputation, that will help you a long way. So that's something I learned. Yeah.
Yeah,
because it's a people business after all, right? Relationships. That's really what matters.
100%. Yeah. And you mentioned about your team members as you're learning, being mentored? Like, what kind of team members did you need to have start investing?
Yeah, that's a good question. Okay, so the first person obviously was Peter, so my mentor. The second person I brought onto my team was my attorney.
Okay.
Because I needed to learn how to read contracts or kind of draft up offer letters. And they are not cheap. So my lesson learned, if I can, share an advice on this, is you get what you pay for. So consider, like, maybe get quotes and then pick one that's going to be the best for you. And I've realized that in the legal world, there are people who are experts in only certain areas. So that's, even though they say they're a real estate attorney, they might have a specific, arena that they work in. So make sure you understand whether that jives with what you're looking for or not.
Right.
So if I can save you time with that, guys, don't spend too much money on that where you have to get things redone with a new attorney. So that was the second person on my team, then a broker or a couple brokers, and then mortgage lenders. Let's see, escrow people, officers, title and escrow. I kind of grew from there. And then, concurrently, property managers.
Yes.
And the reason why I picked that 6th unit out of the other ones that I looked at was because it was in my backyard. So I forgot to mention that earlier, why I chose it. It's because Pam being a little lazy again, and also because I want to be able to do a surprise visit. I wanted it to be within 20 minutes of where I lived.
Okay.
Because it's a trust but verify type of mentality. Yes. And I took that from engineering as well.
Right.
It's like, I'm just starting on this, so I am going to trust you, but I might just show up unannounced just to see, did you really take care of that? Or is my tenant can't even get into their place or something? So that was key for me, was to start in my own backyard.
Did you always start with professional management, or did you have that journey of trying to manage yourself and then?
Yeah, that's a good one. I started with professional because I had one gutted unit, and I was like, there is no way I can handle my 40 to 60 hour full-time job while trying to do the repairs, because you have to be on calls with GCs, and sometimes things fall through the cracks so easily, and working with permits with the city, you have to be there. Sure. Right? So I'm kind of glad I outsourced it. But I've done it all, though. So the next few properties, I tried myself, and I don't recommend it if you don't want gray hairs. I mean, the best description I tell people is let's say you want to open up a restaurant. You don't need to be the chef, the sous chef, the cook, the bus boy, the hostess, and everything all in one. So kind of delegate so you kind of can breathe and have a life and save your sanity. So for me, what I realized right away is that I love my property managers the most. I value what they do. They're like the frontline workers.
For sure.
I do not want that 2 a.m. call of, hey, my toilet's broken. What are you going to do about it? No, thank you. I want my sleep.
Yeah.
So I thank them tremendously. So that they're the next key piece to your team, a very strong asset. But I've trained someone from scratch as well, and she's one of the best ones for me. So again, I guess to each their own.
Sure.
Yeah. Do you have for management, do you have a systematic methodology to identifying property management? Who would be the ideal management company for this particular property?
Yeah. Kind of with time. It's more of the experience of who I want to look for depending on the size, whether it's third party or in-house. Usually it's between those two. I think I'm not really into training from scratch anymore because that takes a lot of time from me.
Yeah.
But then again, you never know, right? But those are my two preferences. And my systematic approach is based on where I'm at. So how far is the property from me? Is it a couple states away? If so, I might start off with a third-party company first just to get things going because they have their systems in place. They're more familiar with the pulse of the area. They've got their vendors set up. Then it's easier. Then you go in, get used to it. When you stabilize the property, you might switch out. You might bring your own team later. So that's okay too. So that's something that, which is another topic for another day, is that don't feel like you're stuck with that property manager forever if they're not doing the best that they can for you and what you need. And you got to keep your eyes on the expenses because that's where scope creep happens.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
It adds up, right? Every little thing, $5, 50 cents, $1,000. You're like, where is this going?
Yeah. now like you're able to scale up much faster than what I've seen other investors do. Tell us about kind of that journey, like your next level of the 3 properties you identified, now writing a book to sharing that, creating wealth with people. Like how'd you take that next step after that?
Yeah, so the book was more of a surprise. It was 2021, around Christmas and New Year's, had COVID, was quarantining for 14 days. Literally cleaned the house like 3 times already, binge watched all the shows that I, saved for like one day I'll get to. And I was like, gosh, I'm so bored. I did DoorDash takeout. I was literally going bonkers at home because at that time my husband and the 2 kids were at my in-laws. And I was like, what can I do that's productive? So I was sitting there watching TV before the countdown for New Year's. And I was like, okay, well, I already cleaned up my work office, went through all the paperwork, all the paperwork that we all say we're going to go through one day. I literally did that. That was like years worth. I was like, okay, now what? So I remembered that I had all these blog articles that I've written. I thought, why don't I just start consolidating, just trying to be productive. And then for some reason, I just flowed. So I wrote the book in 4 hours. All of that, the thoughts combined, the organization and everything, it just came to me. So I don't know if that's going to happen again. So what I was saying was not part of the plan. I don't want to get COVID again. But that's how it happened for me. But the way I scaled up was what I realized, the more you delegate, and I think that's where we all struggle with initially, because we want to kind of keep our expenses lean, right?
Sure.
But for me, I thought it was important to learn to delegate and trust. So if I can outsource certain things, I would, and I understood that I would get a little less back, but it gave me time, which, as I mentioned, we're on borrowed time. So I could spend my time looking at possible acquisitions, maybe meeting, with investors, doing things that I love versus not. And so that was something that was important to me. And I think that's really what helped me scale up faster, is that I was able to outsource or kind of delegate to my team and really entrust them to kind of hold the fort. Of course, there's always fires to put out, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. But that freed up my time to kind of focus on strategically growing the company. So I'm at a point now where it's just like, well, where do I want to take it? We have 100 units between all the investors, but I kind of want to syndicate another 100 units, but at the same time, I feel this different calling too of like, do I want to write more or not? So the answer is, I don't know. Yeah. I'm just rolling with it. Yeah. Right now, just following my gut feel, which I know it's not a straightforward answer for most, and it's based on ambiguity.
Right.
But once I know by New Year's, I'll let you all know.
Well, and so to that point, I mean, you mentioned when we were speaking about management earlier about out of state. So what do those 100 units look like right now? Are they? How many states are you in? How have you grown? I mean, you started with 6 unit in San Diego.
Then I went out of state after that.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about that.
So Washington, Oregon, Arizona, Nevada, Idaho, maybe. We're kind of in the middle of discussions. It might not pan out. And then also now looking in Florida as well.
Really?
This was prior to hurricane season and everything. But the reason why I was in touch with that, I'm a firm believer of the universe really helps you connect with the people you're meant to connect with when you listen to that side. Mm-hmm. Yes, you have to work hard as well, but when an opportunity arises, I tend to try to explore it, kind of flip that stone, leave no stone unturned. So I met, so there's a show on Netflix called Selling Sunset, right? But there's also a show called Selling Tampa. So I met C.R.E.A.T.E, who's on Selling Tampa. And it was by happen chance, I guess, whatever that word means, but it was kismet, and we got along so well. Did not even know she was engaged to be married to Chad Ochocinco. I know nothing about sports, but just met them as normal people, and I'm still trying to do a deal with her team out there. So it's stuff like that happens just out of nowhere through networking, but also just conducting yourself in a positive way, right? Mm-hmm. Maintaining that integrity. But mostly I'm on the West Coast, and initially I picked that because people will ask why. It's because I didn't want to fly far. I didn't want to go far. Again, Pam's preference, right? Yeah. If I could fly back in a day, and at that time I had a newborn too. Oh. I just didn't want to spend that time. But nowadays, my kids are a little older, so I can go almost anywhere. As a matter of last week, I was looking at properties in Hawaii, which I go there like once or twice every year. That's my happy place.
Wow.
So yeah. So I'm all over now. That's basically to answer your question in a nutshell.
Okay, all right.
That's really cool. So, like communicating with Pam, some things that, like, for me, I think it's someone that's really highly leveraged, delegating her systems and processes, and then you're someone I think that really identifies the time value and really maximizes it, right? In terms of what you do. Tell us a little bit about, maybe you can't share everything, but a couple things from your book. That we should know about.
Well, thanks. Okay, yes, let's see. Actually, let me flip it to the table of contents because I should remember it all, but I don't. Well, the biggest thing that we did touch about was like hiring a mentor or a coach. To me, I think that is key because when you guys think about it, we have mentors and coaches in every aspect of our lives. Talking about doctors, there are coaches too for our health, right?
Sure.
Mental health, we got therapists, or if let's say you play soccer or sports, we have coaches there too. So why not when you're learning something new? The other thing is I share in my book is my investment criteria. So without giving it all away, in a nutshell, I just shared like what Pam preferred, but I talked about it already. In the backyard, I want it to be on the West Coast, close to home, but it doesn't have to be that way for everyone. Maybe you might have family in like the state of Michigan or something. You grew up there and you just know the ins and outs of, I don't know, I'm throwing out a city there, guys, like Kalamazoo or something. Well, hey, maybe you can start there. But I think that's what's important is narrowing down your investment criteria because you can spin in circles forever and never make the first move. And I think that's the worst thing ever is to not take a first move. I'd rather see you make the first move and fail, learn from that, and then try again. And I'll tell you why. Because of all these like investment networking groups that I've gone to, there's a couple that we always run to the same kind of circles. I've grown my business in the past, 11 years, 12 years, they still haven't bought their first property and we'll run into each other. And I'm like, hey, how's it going? Did you guys buy your first one yet? Because I'm cheering for you. No, we're still learning. It's been like 8 years. So don't be those people, guys. I know they're encumbered by their fears. But you guys can definitely take that first step. It's better to fail and dust your butt and get back up than to not try at all.
Yeah, and I think we all, you're in this game long enough, you meet a lot of people like that, which is why I applauded you for actually reaching out to the author to begin with when you first, were reading, because I think people get like in an education loop or they get into all these things they think are being productive, but it's not taking action. And so I think that's a really good lesson.
Yeah, you can distract yourself for so long, but at some point I think you yourself, when it's time to take that step. And I've had a lot of conversations with like potential mentees or just clients that after I've taught like a multifamily investing class and they talk to me after the class and they'll say, when did you know? Like they're just looking for that like A plus B equals C formula. And I'm like, you'll never know fully, just like how you'll never know if you're ever going to be ready to be a parent, but you go into it, right? As much as you can, right?
You're right.
Or if you're not wanting to be a parent, or like if you want to travel, like you're never fully ready, never packed for everything, but you do the best you can. That's the best description I have. Or like if you're going to cook a meal, you got most of the ingredients. Sometimes you're like, oh crap, I forgot to buy garlic. Okay, make do.
Right.
Yeah.
Things like that. So you'll never know, but as long as you get the most that you've gathered, make an educated guess. Yeah.
Yeah. What's maybe one piece of advice Pam now would give Pam starting out in this journey? What would you tell yourself to?
2 things. I would say don't be afraid to kick ass. Yeah.
Sure.
Because the Pam now is very different than the Pam then.
Right.
So don't be afraid to kick ass and just don't beat yourself up so much if things aren't going the way they're going. It's going to be okay. Yeah.
Oh, those are wise advices. Yeah.
Yeah. Just keep chugging along. Because what I've realized, it's about the journey itself. It's not really that destination. It's the people I've met, the communities we've changed, or the ups and downs. I think if you view it as a cup half full, you're more likely to stay afloat and cut out the crap, so to speak, like letting that crap go, right? The negativity, right?
Sure.
So you rise above that. Yeah, there's some days that are not perfect, but I think that's something that I would really advise my younger self back then, because there's a lot of insecurities, right? When you're in your 20s, you're just you're like, what am I supposed to do with my life? I graduate, now what with a degree? Or am I going to be doing this forever? So it's just like, calm down, you'll figure it out. Just roll with life.
That's true. I mean, and it's something you don't understand until you're a bit further along. But the reality is, most things work out. Actually,
Most things, you're
they
right.
They really do work out. You just have to go for it.
Yeah, and it's a process.
Yeah.
Right? It's not overnight, and don't fall for those get rich quick schemes, honestly. I think a lot of people fall for that, and it's definitely like a good marketing scheme to get your attention, but for every successful person that you all see out there, they busted their butt to get where they are.
Always.
Like you guys. I know that this didn't happen overnight. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so share with us, you have a couple of books there, some of the books you can recommend with our audience.
Yes. Well, first off, kudos to you guys for having these books in your office for your employees and team members. But these are my top 2 favorite books. Number 1 here, I don't know which camera to show it to, so I'll show it all. That one. Okay. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That was actually a game changer for my mind before I read Peter Harris's Commercial Real Estate Investing for Dummies. By the way, fun fact, Peter Harris was actually one of his, I think, mentees as well or something. So that was also another factor of like, okay, you kind of drank the, all of that, the water, and I want to learn from that so much. So the other book here, it's called The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss.
Yes.
How about that? And guys, this is really what helped me kind of figure out how to best balance my time. We talked about that earlier, but this book was a game changer. And I know in this book, Tim talks a lot about using like virtual assistants. I didn't necessarily go that route. I do have friends who use virtual assistants, but there's a website called like Fiverr that you can get people to do gigs for you. I like meeting my people, so usually I work with like college students or by word of mouth, or like family member whose son or daughter just wants to learn. Like I love giving back that way because I know them personally. But to each their own. So that's how you can be smart about your work week. So nowadays I spend 10 to 15 hours at most. 90% of my time is volunteering. I know it's people think I'm crazy. I probably am, but I'm a mom. That's my first and foremost job. I've got 2 kids. I got to shuttle them to school and back, and now I'm working on co-parenting, which is a different schedule. But that's where I spend my time. I'm just so fulfilled, soul-wise, giving back as much as I can, and then just taking on clients that I feel are like the right fit.
Yeah.
It's just so much more fulfilling that way. Oh, and then I guess I'll show that. That's my book, guys.
Yes.
Great.
If you like it, please, 5 stars on Amazon. If you don't like it, don't do any stars. Just recycle it.
Yeah, no, but she talks about the underwriting, her resources. It's just, it gives you a lot of strategic ways that you can create wealth to using multifamily assets. So I think it's a game changer for someone who wants to get into the business.
Oh, thank you.
Sure.
And I think the key thing is that you guys are probably experts or know of this already since you've been doing this podcast for a while and you've met so many clients, is that everyone has their own way. So put in your own flair. You don't need to follow what some other person did and became successful, because their strengths are probably not the same as yours and they probably didn't start off the same way as you. So something to keep in mind. Just kind of insert your own flair into how you do business.
Yeah, absolutely. You're giving so much time to the community. I know you're passionate about a lot of different networks and involved in them. Can you just share a few that of the community things that you're doing or passionate about?
Yeah, I'm very passionate about the new role with Cal State Fullerton. So I'm the director for the Center for Real Estate, doing it pro bono. It's really fun. Just seeing passionate students in real estate, or we're trying to get a major. So that's kind of like fun. Being in Orange County, I was surprised. I was like, we don't have a major? Like, what is going on? So to jump on that, to work with the dean, C.R.E.A.T.E, who's so amazing and supportive of the students, like it's just everything that I love, which is being passionate about teaching real estate and helping students and females as well. And so basically trying to connect the community of the companies locally to the students and just kind of creating that like joint handshake, if you will, right? Because I'm still surprised we don't have a major. So that's part of the goal is, to have a major, and then also kind of to bring in a new board as well, a board of people who truly want to be helping students at the Cal State level, which it's different than a UC system or a private school system, but we're all family and friends. Like I'm friends with the real estate director at USC because that's also my alma mater. I'm also friends with the director at UC Irvine, another alma mater. So we're all a happy family. It's just that the goals are different, right, for each school. So to me, I'm more like sharing is caring. Let's collaborate. Why do we have to operate in different silos? So that's that I've been trying to work on with the whole team. So it's not me doing it. Once again, another team sport, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not me. I can't take the credit. It's all of us working together to make it happen. And then I'm rolling off my board role with C.R.E.A.T.E Network. I was a global board director, 1 out of 8, which was definitely one of like the best experiences in my life. Visiting the Pacific Northwest chapters, that was kind of the area that I was a liaison to, but just meeting so many women from different backgrounds. So CREW stands for Commercial Real Estate for Women, with the mission of like advancing women. But one day I hope we don't need to have that. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like my goal is that the playground would be even, hopefully, so we all can play and have fun in the sandbox together.
Absolutely.
At least that's kind of where I'm at. So as I roll off of that, I think I'm going to be focusing full time at Cal State Fullerton. So if people want to find me, that's where I'll be, somewhere on campus, hiding from people. But
Right.
I'll be there somewhere. And then I also volunteer with the senior community as well during tax season, because as an enrolled agent, the only reason why I got that was to understand tax-wise where my investment money was going, so that I could be a better advisor to my investors of like where their money's going. So I can explain what depreciation is, explain, what you can write off as a business owner or as a rental property owner, and then kind of help them create a strategy for their future, because, we all want different things in life. So I usually volunteer at the Senior Community Center every year from January to April doing taxes for seniors. And it's free. So if you guys know anyone who's a senior and, just needs help with taxes, every city has a volunteer like IRS tax preparer. So I'm one of those. And half the time it's just you're hanging out with them. They get out once a year or twice a year, and really they're just seeking the company. So I'll like finish their tax return in 10, 15 minutes or something, but we'll spend an hour because they just want someone to listen to them. And I don't know, to me that's just fulfilling to just give them that company for that day, And then it's kind of also humbling as well, because when we see each other, they're like, well, hopefully I'll see you next year. But usually you joke about that, right? But it's kind of real. Like it comes in as real as well, because when they're like, hopefully. Right. And it's like, yes, please. I want to see you next year. Yeah. So it really grounds you. I think that's something that I, am a proponent of. Like, the more you make money, the more you should give, in my opinion. And I've found that it's full circle. It comes back like tenfold and more.
Absolutely.
Yeah. When you're doing it for a good reason. Yeah.
We're talking about multifamily investment with Pam Scamardo. Just tons of gold right there that you guys can pick off of. Pam, how can our audience find you, or where can they reach out or find you? What would be the best
outside
way?
of Cal State Fullerton?
Outside of Cal State Fullerton. Good question. I'm on LinkedIn, so follow me there, or Instagram at Pam Scamardo, or my website, pamscamardo.com.
Very cool.
Thank you guys.
Thank you so much,
so
Pam,
fun.
thank you for
being
your
on
time.
here. So we can look at the camera, and then last word we go by our slogan: level up every day. So if we can say 1, 2, 3, level up every day at the camera. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Level up every day.
everything.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.